We are going to cover the Ally tool in Canvas and accessibility in general to some extent. Ally is a tool that is integrated with Canvas. It's something that I have an admin bird's eye view of, so I can see what accessibility looks like across the whole platform. And then individual instructors also have the power to assess their own courses for accessibility using it. Accessibility is important mainly for the sake of students who have impairments of some kind, above all visual impairments, and we'll demonstrate why that is and how to use Ally and use accessible design in general for their benefit. But also it's a good principle in general to make your courses as accessible and streamlined as you can. To begin this, I got a testimonial on accessibility from our own Steve Close. He'll talk about his own experiences with accessible design. So I'm going to go ahead and play that.
Hi, I want to talk to you today about using accessible documents.
Can you guys hear it?
I want to talk about my experience.
Yes.
The
Okay,
reason
good.
you're hearing this from me is because I had to do a lot of reading for the master's program at Eastern a couple years back when I was studying communications, and I had to read about 150 pages a week, which was fine up until I was diagnosed with cataracts. And I had cataracts in both eyes that blurred my vision significantly, and it was quite hard for me to read. My second quarter there, for most of the term, I had only the use of my left eye or only the use of my right eye as lenses were being replaced. So it was quite difficult for me to read physical texts. Now, the courses that I was taking tended to use only three forms of text. There were print forms, and this is the most common, and then there were non-OCR e-texts, and these are things that are scanned or photocopied. And what that means is a computer thinks that they are just a picture of little lines. It doesn't see them as being actual text, so it can't convert them into anything auditory. All it can do is show you the picture either bigger or smaller. And then there's OCR e-text, and OCR, optical character recognition, means that the computer sees each of the letters as individual letters and can convert them into other formats. Now, while I'm describing this, bear in mind that I am much better equipped than most college students. I've been through a couple of master's programs, a PhD program. I'm very good at research. I'm very tenacious with things. And I still was tremendously frustrated with the process. And our students, I really worry about them when they encounter obstacles like this. I worry that people are going to give up. So bear in mind, I'm not saying your students can do the same thing that I did. I'm saying your students are very unlikely to do the kinds of things that I did. I just want to show you some of the kinds of things that people have to do when they don't have accessible documents. For print, the strategies that they have to use, you can find and pay for an e-text version of the text that's compatible with Kindle or other text-to-speech software. I do this in my class, but I recommend that they buy the e-text if they need it and not the print version. Try to save your students money, but this is the best option if you can find an e-text version of that text, and a lot of our textbooks simply do not have e-text versions. If that fails, use a line from the text for an online Google search and hope to find an e-text that's compatible with text-to-speech software. So you go through the text, find a line, plug it into Google and search, and maybe 25 to 30% of the time you'll find most of it, some of it, maybe all of it. If that doesn't work, for really, really technical stuff like what I was reading, you have to use a line from the text for searches in college library proprietary databases like ProQuest or specific communications databases. Your students probably don't have access to that, probably don't know how to do that. And again, it's very, very rare that it works. So most of the time what I ended up doing and what your students will have to do is to simply bite the bullet and read a blurry text, which is quite difficult to do. For non-OCR texts, you can do the same thing. You can do a Google search using phrases from the article. You can use a proprietary database. And if and when that doesn't work, because usually if you're using photocopied articles, it's because you don't have a print version of it that you can distribute. Those won't work. You can attempt to convert it to OCR. So if you've got a picture of the text from a scan and you try to make it into OCR, there are programs that do this, but they don't work very well yet. So you can see here, this is what it ends up looking like. And if I were to convert this into speech to text, it would sound like this. The Pfeiffer-Weaver model is a linear one-way communication model that Claude Shannon and 5 communication theory Warren Ever created in 1948. And it's absolutely ridiculous to try to listen to something like that. You gain nothing from it because you're so focused on the errors. And then failing that again, you end up biting the bullet, reading a blurry text, which was what I was able to do. And I want to emphasize that. I simply had blurs. Other people have far more pressing issues when they're trying to access texts. What do we do when we have an OCR text? Like most open source textbooks or PDFs that are OCR or Word documents, you open the text-to-speech app, you click on the text, you listen to the text, and you are happy. And you can do this directly through Canvas. Canvas has an option to just click and listen to the text. So this is why it's so important to have them be accessible for text-to-speech applications. So what's most important? Any student can have reasons for needing accessible documents, not just long-term documented disabilities, not just short-term disabilities, many, many reasons for needing these documents. Number 2, you can have students with disabilities who haven't identified themselves as such, but still do better when accommodated. You all know me, you know I'm pretty outspoken, and I never made a peep about this at Eastern. I never told my instructors, I never talked to disability services at Eastern. I just kind of suffered with it. So you know that if I don't speak out, chances are your students probably aren't going to speak out either. You can have situations involving the need for accessible documents that come up quickly and without warning. For me, it was cataracts. A student can break their glasses or lose their glasses, or who knows what can come up. There's a lot of unpredictable stuff in life that can mean that a student can no longer read the things that you have assigned from a physical perspective. Next, there's just as much need for accessible documents in face-to-face teaching as there is in online teaching. I have students who commute from Yakima, who commute from Othello, and they're in their cars for hours each day. And they might as well be listening to the lessons while they're driving. They can't read them while they're driving, but they can listen to them. And the final thing here is I want people to understand that preparing materials early and saying, I don't have a letter of accommodation yet asking me to do this, but I can still do it now. And that means that if it does come up, and it probably will, you can accommodate those students quickly and easily, maybe even in the middle of a term. So I hope this was helpful to you. I hope this helps you to understand why it's so important to have all the documents in your class be accessible.
Matthias, they were saying that we can make PDFs accessible. I know that I have a, well, it's actually from HonorLock. That's a PDF that describing how you're going to use HonorLock, but it does not show up as being accessible in Canvas, and I don't know how to make it accessible in Canvas.
Okay, we'll go over that. I'm now going to share Ally in Canvas. I have a few examples to demonstrate how it works. The link to Ally at the course level is, where is it? Accessibility report. If you don't see it in your Canvas navigation column, it probably means that it's in the disabled link group. And if that's the case, you would go to settings, then go to navigation. And if it were in the lower disabled group, you would drag it up into the active group and click save at the bottom. What this gives you in the beginning is a snapshot of your course. At the top is a a score. This score can be a little bit misleading if it's very good or very bad, because it will take a look at all the content in the course, not just what's published. So you will probably have given your published content a lot more attention than the unpublished stuff. So if you see a middling score, that's not necessarily a cause for concern. What it also gives you is an overview of the things that you can fix. And if I set this up right, all my examples should be in the same place. So I'm going to start this low scoring content assessment. And let's take a look at these examples. Most of what you're going to be seeing will be images and PDF documents. The images are pretty easy to fix. And most of the time they need fixing because they don't have a description. This was a recent trip that I took to Arizona.
Looks like it might have been a little chilly. I see snow.
It was a bit chilly. It was a kind of a surreal scene. This beautiful desert place with the dusting of snow. And it's best to keep the description fairly short. And usually that's all you need to get the score for that particular item up to 100%. Now, PDFs are usually a little more complicated. So this is an example of what Steve was talking about. The document is scanned, but since it hasn't been processed for optical character recognition, it would be useless to a student who was using a screen reader. There are several tools that you can use to apply that character recognition to a document. The one that I use is Adobe Acrobat. This is something that you can get from BBT, I believe.
Matthias, I thought I heard a couple years ago that we ended our support of Adobe Acrobat for some reason.
If that's true, I think we must have gotten it back because I have it courtesy BBT.
Yeah, I have it out of my own pocket, so I don't mind that. I don't know.
Okay. I believe all you need to do. Pardon?
Computers. I believe it's on some of the computers. It's not on all of them. So
right, it's not on our computers
yeah.
by default. And I believe all you need to do is check the recognized text box. And as you can see, once it's done that, you are able to actually highlight text. And if the process is successful, then a screen reader will be able to recognize it as well. But of course, that means that you need to actually upload the document. Now, what's harder to deal with is tagging PDFs. And that is something that I have not experimented with myself. That's why this score is still so low, but that is less important than the text recognition. And same story here. The document has actually been scanned, but it's not tagged yet.
I'm actually tagging a PDF as I type this because I'm trying to fix the accessibility issues. So do the tags have to be perfect? Because what I'm kind of scared of is that, like, do I need MLA or anything like that? Or does it have, or I'm worried that it might be plagiarism if I do it wrong or something.
I doubt it would be.
Okay.
I think if you're doing anything in that regard, you're way ahead of the curve.
And a
Okay.
lot of things,
Do you know how to do it in Acrobat?
I do not. Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, I know how to use Acrobat and I've edited with it before, but yeah, I've never done that.
Okay.
so most of your things, as far as plagiarism goes, if it's being used for education, a lot of the copyright stuff is okay with that as long as it's being used for education. If it's
Mhm.
not
Okay, perfect.
education, you can get in trouble.
You will also see you will also have access to Ally and its tools if you go directly into your module content. So I had all those examples on the first page of this first module. So as you can see, there is a little wheel at the corner of each object with the score. And you can go directly into Ally and make any changes you need to make that way. One thing that's worth considering or worth looking at is how your page will appear to a screen reader or to any kind of alternative view. And you have a couple of means of doing that. There's the immersive reader tool and there's the alternative formats tool. So if you go into immersive reader, for example, you'll see now that the description I added is part of the text. So a blind student, for example, obviously is not going to see the photo, but they will have a verbal description of it if they apply a screen reader to this page now. And in alternative formats, you can also get an audio version of the page.
Is that something that you would maybe that you record yourself reading it and then upload, or is there, you're looking for something online that's already been done?
This would be a robot voice
Okay.
narrating the page. Although it's not necessarily something that Ally will check for, one other thing you can do to aid your students in this regard is to add headings to your text if you don't do so already. And this serves to break up the text.